And the Saudi Crown Prince pledging nearly $1 trillion into the U.S. economy over the next year. How will this impact the American people? Joining us now to discuss is Atiba Madyun, president of Party Politics U.S. and author of Saving Grace, along with Matt Klink, president of Klink Campaigns. Great to have you both back with us. So President Trump was speaking earlier with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia about the planned investments into the U.S. Let's play a clip of that.
I believe, Mr. President, today and tomorrow we're going to announce that we are going to increase that $600 billion to almost $1 trillion of investment, real investment and real opportunity by details in many areas.
So Saudi is going to be investing at least $600 billion, and that means investments in plants, in companies, money on Wall Street, and what it really means for everybody that really counts is jobs, a lot of jobs.
Atiba, Saudi Arabia obviously now pledging $1 trillion investment into the U.S. economy. What do you think this will ultimately translate into for the American people?
That's a good question. We heard the president just say it's going to translate into jobs, but jobs for who? He said it's going to translate into money on Wall Street. But we continue to hear this president forget about Main Street. We forget about the fact that Americans just last week voted overwhelmingly for the opposite party, not for the Democrats, because America has an affordability problem. So as he's talking about an investment of $1 trillion, we're talking about really careers that are more advanced, that in terms of what this deal is supposed to do. How is that going to translate? And I don't think the president has done a very good job of messaging throughout his 10 months as president, how his tariffs, how his plans are going to help the everyday American family.
Matt, to Atiba's point, there is a lot of discussion about affordability. The president himself trying to address this issue. Will we see an investment like this help wages in the United States?
I think it's going to create jobs, which is ultimately a good thing. You know, I find it interesting that, under the past administration, they ignored the economy and told us that everything was hunky-dory for 4 years. And now that we're less than a year into a Donald Trump second term, there's like, what happened? Why haven't you done anything already? So it's coming. The big, beautiful bill has passed. It will go into effect mostly next year. And look, we can talk about last week. Trump was never going to win New Jersey or Virginia. I do think what is significant, though, and your other guests can poo-poo a $1 trillion investment in this country. I will remind you that dwarfs the investment that Saudi Arabia made when Joe Biden was president, in part because Joe Biden called MBS a pariah and then went to Saudi Arabia with his hat in hand and tried to kiss up. And the Crown Prince realized that he was a fraud or an empty suit. So again, it's a good day for America. $1 trillion investment doesn't happen every single day. Certainly didn't happen a lot in the Biden administration. And we're 10 months into Donald Trump's administration. He's got plenty of time to turn it around.
Now, Atiba, Saudi Arabia eager to deepen defense cooperation with the United States, and the president has said that he would approve the sale of F-35 fighter jets to Saudi Arabia. Some Republican lawmakers worry those fighter jets could anger Israel. Do you think that that's a valid concern?
I think there are a lot of valid concerns. I think one of the valid concerns is what the president's family is doing in Saudi Arabia in terms of business deals. And although the president says that he's not involved with the family business, we know that he's built the family business, correct? And then when you look back in terms of where the economy is right now, we're 10 months in, we've already lost 1 million jobs. Many of those jobs started off in the federal government with the DOGE cuts. We also know that we lost 2.7 million jobs during the 2017 to 2021 period of the president's first term. So when we're talking about jobs, when we're talking about $1 trillion being invested into the economy, the question Americans are continuing to ask are, how are those dollars filtering down to us? How are we increasing wages? Because right now it seems like there's an incredible assault on wages in terms of American workers. And we don't see the productivity or the positive things, the positive influence, which is why the elections turned out the way they did last week. That's happening for American people. We keep hearing about, oh, the stock market is doing well. We keep hearing about all these other things, but there are other people whose pockets are becoming fatter while other people's pockets are becoming thinner.
So,
Matt, the
Steve,
president was asked about
question about the F-30. Let me try to answer your question about the F-35, since it's clearly other guest doesn't want to talk about it. I think it's a good thing that we're giving one of our most reliable allies in the Middle East advanced aircraft. They're not going to be exactly the same as they are the Israel. There are many variations on the F-35, but a strong Saudi Arabia makes for a strong Middle East, and it lowers the influence of Iran that you saw the Obama and the Biden administrations try to strengthen Iran while pushing down Saudi Arabia because they thought that it would normalize relations with the radical mullahs in Iran. So Donald Trump's, again, peace through strength. He's working with Saudi Arabia. He definitely worked with Israel to demonstrate peace through strength. And the Democrats don't like that because they love the Iranians and they support the Palestinians.
Matt, what do you say to Atiba's point about the president's family's business? He was asked about that earlier and responded that he is no longer involved in those businesses. Is there anything that the American people should be concerned there?
You know, look, I guarantee you that if the Democrats take back power, they'll investigate that just like they did in the first term, and nothing came of it. We do know that unlike crackhead Hunter Biden, that the Trump children are legitimate business people that have strong business histories. So the fact that they're doing their own thing and making money, I know that hurts the Democrats because they're not capitalists, AKA they love Zoran, the Havana on the Hudson. However, the Trump children are accomplished business people of their own right, and they're not mooching off daddy like Hunter Biden did and got popped for it.
Matt raises an interesting point with Burisma and some of the deals that were done in Ukraine when the president was vice president or shortly thereafter with his son being on the board there. Atiba, do you see Saudi Arabia being pulled into the Abraham Accords, and would that ultimately be a good thing for peace and stability in the Middle East?
Today, I see a lot of talk, just like, in terms of the conversation that we're having right here. I don't want to attack people. What I want to do is figure out what are the policies and what is the president's position and how is he going to help people? What we continue to see is businesses continue to make more money, but we don't see those dollars getting down to people. And the reason why I keep bringing these things up is because we keep having these attacks on Democrats. We keep having these attacks from Democrats on Republicans, but we don't have enough conversations in terms of how are all these policies putting people first? How is this deal in the Middle East with giving F-35s to Saudi Arabia? How is that really going to strengthen our position as Americans? We continue to hear the president talk about America first, but what we can also continue to see is that there are attacks that are going on Americans and American citizens on the framework of immigration. We continue to see us escalating tensions with other countries around the world. And when we also continue to see now what happened today is the arming of other people, which I think is more so a policy of geopolitical positioning, almost as if there is something in terms of tensions that are going to happen around the world that we are not talking about. What we're talking about here is we just continue to have these culture wars. And really, the bottom line here is whether or not you're a Republican or a Democrat, people today are more concerned about how are these tariffs that the president has imposed. How is this deal today? How is it really making the lives of everyday working Americans better?
Matt, what do you hope to see with our relationship and role in the Middle East?
Yeah, I think that our relationship and the role in the Middle East was put on a strong footing under the first Trump administration with the Abraham Accords. It's on an even stronger footing now that Hamas has largely been neutralized, that Iran has been substantially weakened. If the Saudi Arabian government were to come into the Abraham Accords, I think that it would certainly strengthen the Middle East. I will remind you, Steve, that Saudi Arabia is our largest foreign military sales partner, and that's just not under Donald Trump. That's consistently across the board. So that's those sales of military equipment. They translate into American jobs in places like Washington State, in Illinois, and in South Carolina. So it is a good thing that America does do business with Saudi Arabia. And it's an even better thing that the Saudi Arabian government is going to invest up to $1 trillion in the United States. That will create American jobs. So again, that's a benefit. All of America benefits from that. And again, today's a good day for America. This meeting was a great thing for this country, and hopefully there will be many, many more like them.
Atiba Madyun, Matt Klink, really appreciate both of you coming on.